Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone, Sue here at 1A Auto, and today in this video we're going to be working on this 2008 Subaru Outback. I'm going to show you how to replace your rear main oil seal. So if you need any parts for your vehicle, click on the link below and head on over to 1AAuto.com. Raise and support your vehicle with jack and jack stands or 2-post lift. We're going to drain the radiator. We're going to loosen the radiator drain petcock. There you go. Once that's draining, I'm just going to pull the clips. Remove the oil drain plug and drain the oil. Now I'm going to spray all the exhaust studs and nuts that need to come down from the crossmember pipe, so they'll be loose enough so no breakage will occur. Remove the battery hold down. Now remove the battery terminals. And remove the battery. Now you can remove your airbox. Remove the drive belt shield. Loosen the hose clamps and remove the upper radiator hose. Remove the battery cable from the alternator. And I like to put the nut back on so I don't lose it. Remove the alternator bolts. There we go. Remove the alternator. You might need a pry bar to help you out. Taking the power steering pump bracket assembly out because I'm not going to drain the power steering system. So I want to take the whole bracket out with the pump, set it aside. Now I'm going to loosen the AC tensioner belt pulley so I can remove the AC belt. Now I'm going to remove the AC bracket from the engine block. So what I like to do when I pull an engine, I start in one section and I work myself around. So I took the battery out first just for 100% protection. I knew that I'm not going to use an AC machine on the AC, so I'm not going to recycle the Freon, so I left it intact, put my compressor up over here, and the same with the power steering. I didn't want to make a mess. So on Subarus, it's pretty easy. Just leave the pump and the hoses connected, put it up over there. So now I disconnected my fuel lines, my brake booster line. I've got the starter over here, a couple of heater hoses. I'm still draining the coolant, so I won't do the heater hoses, but I'm going to work my way over there and work that way over, basically. Then we'll lift the vehicle up and I'll work from down below. So this is the return line to the gas tank. So you have your fuel feed and fuel return line. Set those up there. So on this side, you'll find a lot of your imports that will have a one main harness so that you don't have to undo the whole vehicle. You just unplug the main harness here. That's a push down on that. pull that gray tab down, and the whole harness comes disconnected. But we're stuck on this, so I've got to take this tab out, take this bracket out, so I can get the harness to move. So this harness stays with the engine, and that stays in the vehicle. Disconnect the O2 sensors, because the O2 sensors are going to be staying in the front pipe, so that's going to come down from below. So I'm going to disconnect the O2 sensors up here now, so that when the vehicle's lifted up, I don't have to struggle with it. There we go. There we go. Remove the bell housing bolts from the top of the block, and then we're going to remove the lower section once we raise the vehicle. I'm going to leave the positive wire right on that starter and just back the starter out and leave the cable attached. Remove the heater hoses. Remove the front exhaust cross pipe fasteners. Then we can remove the cross pipe. Some motor mount, nut and washer, one on both sides. And there's a washer, 14 millimeter. And I'll take all the bell housing bolts out, the starter bolt on the bottom out, and access the torque converter nuts, and then pull the engine. Just so you know, these studs down here will be the only real headache you'll ever have on these. I'm pulling an engine on a Subaru, that's the only nightmare. Once you have drained all the coolant from the radiator and engine block, now you can reinstall the radiator drain plug. We can loosen up the lower hose clamps and remove the lower hose. I have to take the throttle body off to access the torque converter little port. There's a rubber boot there, so we can take the torque converter nuts off the transmission torque converter. So I've got 4 10 millimeter socket size bolts. So there's the plastic boot. And I'm going to turn the crank and access the torque converter mounting bolts. So the crank bolt, if you need to know, is a 22 millimeter socket. And there it is, it's a bolt. So you have to put pressure on the crank while you go the opposite way with the you don't recommend turning that crank counterclockwise too much, because it takes, your timing belt can skip a tooth. So there we go. Now in this case, I take this bolt completely out. I don't spin around. Okay, there's the other one. So I have to take the AC compressor off because the lovely AC bracket, here's the hook for lifting the engine. So easy thing is now that the bracket's out, I can get the compressor out a lot easier anyways. There's 3 12 millimeter socket mounting bolts on that bracket. So I'm going to take the coolant fans out. Should take all of 10 minutes, if that. I'd rather have it out now than lifting the engine up and say, oh, those need to come out. So that's how you get rid of the overflow tank. Okay, one more. Then we'll just disconnect the electrical part of the fans and pull them out. It's down below here, just like everything, clip. This one's a pull up on the clip, pull it out. There we go. The other hook is in the back. There's a round bracket slot to put a chain through. Now we got the setup. We're gonna get the engine hoist. Don't forget you need to put a jack under the transmission. Just need to jack it up enough so that that clears, because you've got the two studs in the bottom of the transmission. There we go. Now the motor mounts are clear of the frame. Let's make sure my power steering pump's out of the way. Yeah, and those bolts look clear. What we're gonna do is get a pry bar, go between the housing, pry it free. Cannot forget your torque bolts that I already took out. There's a reason for that. If you drag the torque converter out, you can break the pump seal on the transmission side. I think I'm going to jack the training jack up a little bit more. There we go. Now it takes the pressure off that bell housing. Hoist. And there you have it. You want to see the stud? These are the two studs I was talking about down below. That's the other reason for the floor jack. You've got to bring the transmission up so that the motor mount bolts clear the cross member. I gotta take the hood prop bracket off. It's no big deal, 10mm socket. I'll just turn it. Now you can take a second, look in the back of your engine, confirm there's no hoses, no cables, no wires. We're ready to go. Make sure your oil pan clears the radiator. And then just slide her out. So this is the transmission torque converter. It's an automatic transmission. If it was a standard, there would just be a clutch pack and a flywheel. The difference is that you don't have anything to unbolt. These are the torque converter mounting bolts to the flywheel. So you want to make sure it stayed seated, it didn't pop out. It's what they call a sun gear in the center. That sun gear goes through several stages. So you spin your torque converter and push at the same time. And if it had slid out just a smidge, you want to make sure it seats all the way back. You can also put your fingers back here and you'll feel the roundness against the aluminum housing. This did not move, it's seated right where it should be. I'm going to take the flywheel or flex plate off of the crank because we're going to replace the rear main seal. It's a 14mm socket. I'm going to take my flathead screwdriver and I'm going to push it in under the seal, pry this out all the way around until I start getting some movement. It's hard when the engine dangles like this, but so I have a seal puller also. So the screwdriver didn't work right away, so I'm going to put my seal puller in there. Now I'm going to take a rag and my screwdriver and just going to poke it in there and clean that surface up. Make sure there's nothing going on. Clean the surface out here. Now we're going to install the new rear main seal. I put just a little silicone paste around the seal where it meets the crank, and then I'm going to slide it on. And I'm trying to get a one piece motion here. So I'm going to put pressure on the top. There we go. That's almost flush. So I'm just going to tap it. A little bit more. You can see it where it rides a ridge. Don't want to go too much. It has to be even all the way around. If it at all is oblong, the crank will just push it right out. So with your finger, you can feel the ridge line go around. And that feels pretty good. Right here, just a little. There we go. Now it feels 100%. So now we're going to put the automatic transmission flex plate back on. It goes like this. You can line up the thread holes, and then it's got a washer plate. There's the washer plate. You can see previous installation. So this side would be the side facing me. Line those up. I'm going to grab a couple of bolts and start them by hand. Some flywheels or flex plates will have an offset bolt pattern. So it's tedious because you got to keep spinning it. If you didn't mark it, you'll have to spin it so you find the bolts to all line up. But Subaru makes it nice and easy. The torque spec is 60 foot-pounds. So you've got to find a way to make sure that the cranker flywheel doesn't spin flex plate while you torque it in a crisscross pattern. So I'm just going to put a pry bar right here. That's going to hold it steady. And I'm going to start on the bottom one. So the final is 60 foot-pounds, and I set the first passing for 30 foot-pounds. And it is a bit challenging with the engine rocking around, but it can be done. You can see the crisscross pattern that I'm using. Okay, now I can set it to 60. Start from my first bolt, do the cross pattern. One more time for quick measure, and then this is not a bolt that you want to come loose on you. So the challenge here is going to be making sure you line up these two bottom studs with that transmission. That's the hardest part of this. checking to see how much further I got. So the good thing, the Subaru engine is pretty lightweight. So I do have a jack, don't forget, under the transmission. So I'm going to try to line this up. I might jack it up just a hair. Okay, now I'm happy with that. Let's see if I can get that one. There we go. Might jack it up just a smidge. Looks real good. So now I'm going to lower the transmission with the floor jack and lower my crane at the same time. All right, so the tension's off the engine. Let's see if the motor mount fell into place. It needs to go back probably about maybe a 1/2 inch to 1/8 of an inch back for those motor mounts to fall in. So I'm going to bolt up my housing transmission to the engine, get all my bolts started by hand. As you can see over there, I get more of a gap than I do over here. So once I put the bolts in, I might just fall into place while I'm tightening up. I think I'm going to tighten some of these top bolts. Nothing too crazy. I'm not going to use an air gun. I'm going to use it by hand. See if I can bottom these out. Now that the engine's all lined up with the transmission, the motor mounts are just a smidge off from the slots, so I'm just going to go underneath and tap them, and they'll fall right into the cross-member bolt holes. There we go. Make sure that plate lines up. I gotta get a pry bar, pull it back now. Just going to lift to support the engine enough so I can spin this plate. There we go. Now we're in place. I'm going to hold that and lower this down. Perfect. Put the motor mount nuts on. Both sides. Now I can put the bolts on the transmission studs, the nut, sorry. So you get a flat washer and then the nut. Let's put those on. All the other bolts that I started by up on top, they look good. So now I'm just going to get my air gun and tighten up the transmission housing bolts to the engine block. Now I'm going to line up the starter, reinstall the bolts, making sure that that ground wire is attached to the top bolt bracket. Now we're going to line up the torque converter bolts, mounting bolts. So I've got the flex plate in view, and you have to put a 22 millimeter on the crank, turn your crank clockwise. So I've got the mounting bolt hole on the flex plate in view, but I don't know if the torque converter bolt hole is lined up. So I'm going to spin that by hand. I'm going to get a mirror and use a mirror at the same time. That I think will help. Okay. Now with a mirror there, I put my finger inside and turn the actual torque converter, transmission torque converter, until I see thread bolts. Once you get one in, you're pretty much all set. Perfect. Now you have to tighten it out by hand. I'm just going to bottom it out. I'm not going to torque it yet. I'm going to put all of them in, all four, and then go around and torque it to 18.4 foot-pounds. That's the manufacturer's specs. Number two. You gotta be real careful here because you do not want to drop one of these bolts. There's two types of torque converter mounting methods. Some people use studs and you put the nuts on, and some people use the bolts. The bolts are nicer because then you don't have to line up the studs to the torque converter to the actual flex plate while you're trying to line the engine up to the transmission. And you could do damage to your torque converter pump, transmission pump, if you do not line them up properly. I want to show you something pretty neat about Subarus. So the main harness down here is bolted right here and right one over here with a 12 millimeter socket head bolt. You take these out, you can get to the torque converter nuts and bolts with an extension right through the middle, the front here of the intake. So if you're a guy with big hands and you're like, I can't get my hand in there, I'll show you a quick way. It would be easier torquing it also because then I'll have more throw with the torque wrench. There we go. Now you can go right through the front here. So lift the harness upward and you can get it right out of the way. And now you can bottom these bolts out and you can turn it to the next one. Going to put your harmonic balancer socket ratchet on reverse because you got to hold the engine. .4 foot-pounds. Take it off. Rotate this until we get to the next one. There it is. Now for safe precautions, you're going to check all of them again. Go one more time around. So now you can reinstall the access rubber plug boot to the transmission. It snaps right down in there. I'm going to remount the bolts for the wiring harness. So now I'm going to put the throttle body back in. I've got the gasket all lined up with the bolts on the actual throttle body. Pull this harness up. I just want to start it by hand. You don't want that gasket falling down or get pinched. That's a 10mm socket. Torque specs for the throttle body is 6 foot-pounds. I do it in a crisscross pattern. So I'm going to go from here and work my way around and start assembling all the stuff on those side of the body. So over here I have the coolant hose that goes to the throttle body. I have the connector. I have the other coolant hose. Make sure you put the clamps on. Then I have the main harness here. Pop the harness retaining clip up. So you line up the ears on this style, it pops right in. Then you pull down on this handle, it locks down. Then you can crimp this. Perfect. Now I have the power steering pump. You get 3 bolts for the power steering pump. The long one is going to go in this bracket. Don't forget to plug in the power steering switch. And we'll tighten that bracket down. It's a 12mm socket. I snugged them. Now I'm going to torque these to 18 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to line up my AC compressor. So I'm going to undo the bracket like I had to begin with to take the AC bracket out, because the bolts are hidden down, mounting bolts, right here. So it saves a lot of time. I'll undo the bracket, take it out, mount it, then install it again. This bracket is where the engine crane attaches, so it has to be installed. That's why it keeps coming in and out. It's a 14mm socket. I don't want that to fall into the radiator, so I'm gonna put that up there. So first thing we're gonna do is put these in, line up the 2 bottom bolts. I can put this bracket on. Okay, now I can put the top bracket on. And now I can start the bottom one. Perfect. I have all the mounting bolts in place for this AC bracket. 14mm. I'm going to tighten them all down. I'm going to torque all these mounting bolts to 23 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to hook up the fuel lines, the fuel return line and the fuel supply line. This is the fuel return. I'm going to get a pair of pliers and put that on right away. I put this connector on. Hear it click. Now there is a lock pin for that. It's the plastic guide. So that goes like this. Snaps into place. Work my way over here. Came out of the bracket. Now I should have, that goes to the air box, but there's going to be 2 coolant hoses down here. I'm going to attach those. Make sure you just bottom them out. Put your clamps on. This is your brake booster vacuum line. Make sure that's seated all the way in. So now we're going to put the air box in. So this has, I'm gonna mount this part over here. It's gonna be a bit of a bugger. Let's make sure it's in on the bottom. Yep. So this has a guide for these two hoses to go right there. And we're going to make sure that throttle body hose is connected. This line goes there. Got a mounting bolt right here. Got another mounting bolt over here. There we go. There is another breather hose on the bottom, coming out of the valve cover, going into the air box. Yeah, it's a thumb clamp. Make sure you squeeze it. Put that clamp on. And then make sure you connect your mass airflow sensor. Snaps into place. 8mm socket or a flathead screwdriver. Make sure that's tight. Then we have 2 minor screws, which are 10mm socket. We have the coolant fan. It's got the 4 blades, and it's located on the driver's side of the radiator. So you got the piton air, 2 marks right there that you're gonna hook up into the down below there on those brackets. There you go. And 2 mounting screws up here. They're just little 6mm bolts with a 10mm head on them. Get those started. Now make sure you connect your electrical connector for the fan. It's located down here in the corner. Just trying to line it up with my one hand. Squeeze it together. Down below here you have these plastic guides for the transmission cooler lines. They want you to put those right inside there so that they don't get hit by anything. Now we're going to install the AC fan with the 2 little pitons. We're going to line them up with the mounting bracket down below. So you're going to slide them right down in. Then you're going to get the mounting bolts. They're 6mm bolts with a 10mm head for a socket. And then you're going to hook up the electrical connector, which is located down here in the corner. There we go. And snap it until it clicks. Gonna put the upper hose on, radiator hose. Okay. I'm just snugging it with this. Do not rank on them with an electric or air gun. Just snugging it down. To install the alternator, you line up this back bolt to that bracket, and as you can see, it's really tight going down. That's because all alternators have this spacer that is movable, but once it's tightened, a lot of people don't realize it moves. It's a floating bracket in there. So the way to do that, to loosen that up, is put it on a hard surface. You've got a vise or something, and I like to use a brass punch. And you line that up and hit it with a hammer. There you go. See how it's seated down? You can see the difference over here. It came out some. Now when we go to put that in, I'm not struggling with it. Falls right into place. Put the long bolt in. The bolt on that is designed to have a bracket on it, so it lines right up. So the nut won't spin because it has those ears on it that line it up. I'm just going to put my hand back there, make sure it starts, and guide it in. So now I can carefully mount my adjustable bolt. I'm not tightening this, I just want to get it snug. Now we have the long adjustable bolt, so that'll go up. You can't go this way, obviously it doesn't line up. Spin it around. It goes on the ear of the alternator, threads right in there. Both these mounting bolts are a 12mm socket. Just going to snug this, bottom it out. I'm not going to tighten it because I'm going to have to make adjustments once I put the belt on. So this alternator has what you would call a belt guard. You see how there's two washers here? You have the big thick one that mounts against the alternator and that thin one. I like to put it right in between there. There we go. And that mounts there. I'm not going to completely mount that because I have to see the belt. Just snugging it up. Perfect. So you want to make sure that your AC tensioner is adjusted enough so that you can get the belt over the AC pulley. So now harmonic balancer around the AC, and then there's the AC pulley. Now you're going to reverse the direction and you're going to bring that long bolt down on that idler pulley for your AC belt or tensioner pulley. Make sure that all the ribs are lined up. And don't forget that once you tighten that pulley, the mounting bolt for that pulley, that's going to make it tight also. So what I'm doing is while I'm adjusting this, I'm spinning the belt side to side. I'm feeling the tension. And I like it right there. I don't want it too tight, it'll burn out the bearings. So now I take a 12mm socket and I'm going to tighten up the mounting bolt. Install the alternator belt. I'm going to go down over the harmonic balancer, power steering pump, and then over the alternator pulley. I'm going to have to loosen up on the alternator a little bit more. Pretty much it. There we go. Now I can adjust this adjuster. Check your belt. Okay, I'm going to leave it right there. And I'm going to snug up the adjuster bolt mounting bracket. Now I can bring this bracket down and tighten up. Now you can mount the bolt on the power steering bracket. And then we have this cover that goes here and there, but first we're going to bring the electrical over. I think I'm going to bring this, yeah, must route through here because there's a connector here for this clamp thing goes around this oil pressure, oil fill. There we go. Like that. Connect the AC compressor. This mounting bracket goes there. Get now we can plug in the internal regulator on the alternator, and we have the alternator nut already available to us because I left it right there. See, I'm not fishing for it. That's why I like to do things like that. And that mounts right there. That's a 12mm socket. You want to make sure you hold onto that harness and just snug it. If you just rank on it, that's a copper bolt. It'll snap off inside the alternator. Now we can put that cover on. I've got a long bolt and a short bolt. The long bolt will go up here in the bracket because it goes down, it mounts into that belt guide. This is a 10mm socket. Now I'm going to put in the overflow tank. So you've got this piton that is going to mount up to that little ear mounting. There we go. So this is how you mount this. This slides into this bracket, and that is going to be the mounting pin on this side. So you slide this in and then push it down, and it's supposed to snap in there. If you have to, get the old manipulation tool, pair of pliers. Make sure you connect it to the radiator. Let's mount our breather airbox. This goes on the inside. There we go. So this push pins, they got these rubber bushings. I like to stick with the pins, but you need to take them off the pins and mount them in here first. Do that to both. Perfect. Now we're going to push the push pins in. I'm going to mount the low radiator hose. I'm going to put it on the radiator first. Make sure that's seated all the way down. And then I'm going to mount it on the thermostat housing. There we go. Let's put the clamp on. Okay. I'm going to prime the oil filter before I install it, especially where this engine has been completely drained. When it was out, it was on a stand. We'll let that sit for a little bit, and we'll prime it some more. I'm going to put these gaskets up in place. On both sides. Now that my oil filter is primed, take a bit of clean oil, put it on this gasket, and I'm going to mount it up in there. Doing this before I mount the front pipe exhaust because it will be easier for me to snug it down by hand. Okay, I'm going to line up the studs on the downpipe first so that I can make sure that goes in. There we go. Now that'll slide right up. Put a mounting nut on. I'm just going to flex the flex pipe enough so that I can get the studs to line up. Okay, then I can put the lock nuts on the stud to the heads. These are all 14mm socket. Even these down ones. I'm just going to snug these up until they bottom out. And then I'm going to tighten them by hand. So just using a 3/8 drive 14mm deep socket, I'm going to snug these bolts down. The reason I don't use air is because these studs go right into an aluminum head. And I don't want to take that chance. So now these have got your O2 sensors. The connectors are connected up on the top. So I'm going to fish them up there and then connect them in, because you can't reach the connectors from down here. And the front pipe is a 17mm socket. Here we have our upstream O2 sensor and downstream O2 sensor connectors. I'm going to connect them. This is really air-fuel ratio sensor, or upstream. Connects right there. There we go. And here is the downstream O2 sensor. There we go. Let's install the battery. So now I'm going to clean the terminal ends. This is a battery brush. You can see how it works. To clean the cable end, you take the cover off of your battery tool and put it on the handle. And now you have the inside brush. And we're just cleaning the connection. Slide that down. And it's going to be a 10mm socket. I like to put the cover on right away. So here you have a long L bracket and a short J bracket. The long one goes in the front, and the short one goes in the mounting in the back. You can see that mounting hole right there. I like to use a deep 10mm socket. Clean the negative terminal. And make sure that's all the way down on the terminal, on the post. 10mm socket or ratchet. Now let's add the oil. This takes 4.5 quarts of oil. 5W30 is the manufacturer weight it recommends. So you can top off your fluid, fill up the radiator. So now I've checked all my fluids. I've filled my oil. I've filled my coolant. My battery's connected. Now I'm ready to start my engine, but because it's a disassemble, I want to pull the fuel injection pump relay or the EFI fuse, because I want to crank this over and get the pressure up before it actually starts up. So I'm going to find the location of the EFI fuse or the fuel pump relay, whichever one I can find. Okay, fuel pump, 15 amp fuse. So if I go like this, it would be the bottom one right here. And here's my fuse puller. I'm going to pull that. There we go. I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to place it right there. Just cover that in case. And I'm going to crank my engine over. Now I'm going to replace my fuel pump fuse. Put the cover back on and crank it over. Now we're going to let the vehicle get to temp, check all the fluids while it's running, and if there are no leaks, everything's good, then it's time to put the splash shields back up and go for a road test.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.